Breaking news. Turkey lira contagion mapped. How the Turkish crisis is taking the world down with it. The Turkey lira meltdown is causing a global economic crisis with countries across the four corners of the world becoming infected. The lira slipped below 7.0 to the US dollar and was down 12% on Friday's value at one point this morning. The currency is collapsing after Donald Trump doubled import duties on steel and aluminum as part of fresh sanctions on the country. The countries are embroiled in a diplomatic row sparked by the case of U.S. evangelical pastor Andrew Brunson, which Turkey wants to try on terrorism charges, believing he was behind the attempted coup on President Recep Tayyip Erdogan 2 years ago. The euro had already plunged after the tariffs were imposed on Friday, with the currency dropping to a 13-month low this morning. It has been a concern that the lira will affect European banks, mainly Spanish and French, because of the exposure of major European lenders to Turkish debt. Hasnain Malik, a strategist who is the head of equity research at Exotics, said, because of the high participation of foreign banks and portfolio investors in Turkey, there are clear risks of contagion. Spain's IBEX 35 was down 0.99% at the time of publishing and France's CAC 40 was down 0.48%. The fresh lira collapse on Sunday night hit Asian shares, weakened the South African rand and drove demand in global markets for safe currencies including the dollar, Swiss franc and yen. Investec economist Philip Shaw said, "There's a risk-off mood generally triggered by the Turkish currency sell-off, and we are seeing a wider sell-off now, and it's looking pretty ugly in other emerging markets as well." The euro slid as low as $1.1365 before recovering slightly today. The pound sterling opened at a 13-month low as the dollar continues to rise in the wake of the lira's decline. Andrew Kenningham, chief global economist at Capital Economics, said, "The plunge in the lira which began in May now looks certain to push the Turkish economy into recession and it may well trigger a banking crisis. This would be another blow for emerging markets as an asset class, but the wider economic spillovers should be fairly modest, even for the Eurozone." The Russian ruble slumped to a new low for the first time in 2.5 years. The Indian rupee slid to an all-time low. The South Africa rand fell to 14.50 rand per dollar, which is its lowest level since June 2016. The rand is also down more than 10% from late last week. The Indonesia rupee hit its lowest point in almost 3 years and prompted an intervention from the country's central bank. The ripple effect has also been felt in Mexico and Argentina with their respective pesos also dropping. Ulrich Luckmann, an FX strategist at Commerzbank in Frankfurt, warned with the fallout worldwide could result in a full-blown crisis. He said, "The big fear in the market is that we are headed for a full-blown emerging market crisis." Mr. Luckmann said he believed that we are fundamentally in a different position because many emerging market central banks retained the confidence of the market after hiking interest rates over the past year. China's yuan weakened 0.5%. Its steepest daily decline in nearly 4 weeks. The Japanese yen has risen to a 6-week high after climbing for a second day. But the Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan had fallen 1.7%. But analysts expect Asia to ride out the storm thanks to ample foreign exchange reserves and prudent fiscal and monetary policies. Analysts at Singapore's DBS said, Asia should not see any contagion effect fundamentally due to the ongoing crisis in Turkey as the region does not have a meaningful exposure to the country. We would see any meaningful correction in bond prices on the back of the Turkey developments alone, as a buying opportunity. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan told supporters today there is no suggestion Turkey is in a financial crisis like those seen in Asia 2 decades ago. He insisted the lira's free fall was the result of a plot and urged residents to exchange dollars and gold for lira. He called on the nation to stand united against America, while Iran and Russia also lent their support against Washington. Mr. Erdogan said, "What is the reason for all this storm in a teacup? There is no economic reason. This is called carrying out an operation against Turkey." A Turkish presidential spokesman has insisted the country's economy is strong and said nobody should pay attention to speculation. The spokesman said the treasury, Central bank and banking watchdog were all taking the necessary steps to bring the matter to an end. The currency has tumbled more than 40% this year over Erdogan's ambitions for more control over the economy as well as crumbling relations with the United States. On Friday, Mr. Trump announced he was doubling the tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from Turkey. He tweeted, "I have just authorized a doubling of tariffs on steel and aluminum with respect to Turkey as their currency, the Turkish lira, slides rapidly downward against our very strong dollar. Aluminum will now be 20% and steel 50%. Our relations with Turkey are not good at this time." Shares of Turkish steelmakers Kardemir and Erdemir immediately plunged as much as 8% and 9.9% respectively after Trump's tweet. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said during a speech in Ankara his country had done enough to repair its ties with the U.S. and accused Washington of acting contrary to their alliance regarding fundamental security issues. He also said the U.S. should learn that it will not achieve any results by threatening Turkey. Latest currency exchange figures at time of publishing: South Africa, 14.50 Rand per $1, Russia, 67.8 ruble per $1, Indonesia, 14,607.90 rupiah per $1, India, 69.78 rupees per $1, Mexico, 19.27 peso per $1, Argentina minus 29.23 peso per $1, Europe, $1.13 per €1, United Kingdom, $1.27 per £1, Japan, 110 yen and 40 cents per $1, China, 6 Chinese yuans and 88 cents per $1, Switzerland, $1 per 0.99 franc.